Not seeing the Fox logo is actually really weird. So this intro is actually super quiet for no reason, and it made me think my speakers were actually broken. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, so now that jump scare is over for no reason, a bunch of 90s era computers boot up and we see we are in the Zeta 2 Reticuli system. We then see the wreckage of a spaceship, and shortly after, another ship finds some sort of rock floating in space. The crew of that ship then starts examining a rock with some sort of scanner and cuts it in half. Something is removed from it, and we get a panning undershot of the rock showing the imprint of something. As the rock pivots, we get a better view of what appears to be a Xenomorph fossil.
Put that thing back where it came from, also help me!
We then cut to a woman on a hill. Shortly after, there's a loud siren sound, and the woman wakes up from a dream to some sort of quarantine announcement over loudspeakers, and we get a Weyland-Yutani name drop. She then enters what appears to be some sort of mess hall or a shared eating space. She meets with another character who has some sort of speech impediment and is a real comedic guy, honestly. Sounds a lot like me. She then gets a phone call from someone she owes money to, but she ignores the call. The man tells her they will just call again, to which she replies with, "Maybe we won't be here anymore when they do." Heading outside, we are then given some context telling us we are on Jackson Star mining colony. Population is about a small town, being 2,781 residents, with a whopping 0 hours of sunlight. Hope you like taking vitamin D supplements. Her and the man then continue down the road till they reach the Colony Affairs office, and on their walk, we learn the man has some sort of disability based on the way he acts and what he talks about. She then tells the man she needs to go inside, but to wait right here because she'll only be a few minutes. Oh, the amount of times I was told that as a child while I waited in the car. Good times. We finally learn, almost 10 minutes into the film, our main character is named Mary Rains Carradine, played by Kaylee Spaney. Though, she is gonna go by Rain for the entire movie, so we're gonna call her that too. We learn she has been in this colony for a long time and has earned the right to go off-world. The woman at the desks asks her some pretty redundant questions due to the information given to her on her screen. For example, she asks Rain where her parents are, even though it says both are deceased right there on her computer. We also learn from this exchange the man's actually her brother, played by David Johnson. We briefly cut back to him, and some punk-ass kids walk up to him and shove what appears to be, honestly, it's like one of those fucking grabber toys, like right in his face. We then cut back to Rain in the office, and the desk worker states Rain's travel clearance has actually been revoked due to a worker shortage, and she's being transferred to the mines instead, which is a lie because her screen also already said that Rain was eligible. My spidey senses are tingling. Rain tries to defend herself by saying she is sure she has earned her quota, but the woman just dismisses her as we hear the kids attacking her brother. Although the sounds that are coming from him being hit sound really off, like metal on metal and not metal on flesh. As Rain approaches her brother, we see he is leaking some sort of white fluid from his head. Rain then opens a port on the side of his head and slots in a USB recovery drive to save his ass, because it turns out, bro is actually a robot. Her brother then reboots, and Rain apologizes for leaving him alone like an unattended laptop at a Starbucks. Then a man calls her and tells her to meet him at the trailers and to bring Andy, which I guess is her brobot's name. Which, honestly, I laughed at way too hard when I was recording this, so that's gonna be Andy's name I refer to him as from time to time, because it's funny. So laugh at it. Rain and Andy then head over to some housing units and head inside after being greeted by the man on the phone earlier. After a very brief conversation, the people in the building tell Rain they need to show her something, and no, I'm not forgetting any names. We are literally almost 15 minutes in, and we only have 2 named characters. Until finally, during the conversation, holy shit, we actually get some more names. So it turns out the lady with the buzz cut is Navarro, played by Eileen Wu in her first major film role, and girl, you fucking killed it. The dude with the bandana is named Bjorn, played by Spike Fern, and his first name is Spike. I don't think I need to say any more. Even though it's slightly cheating, I went back and zoomed in on her first FaceTime call with the Apple Watch, and the guy's name who invited her is Tyler, played by Archie Renault. Also, curly hair girl is named Kay, and I honestly misheard her name as somebody agreeing with her in dialogue. And the first time I watched this movie, I was genuinely so confused why she wasn't introduced with the rest of the group. Basically, these people are all her friends and want to help her get off-world, and they want to do that by planning the greatest heist ever and stealing some Wayland cryopod tech from a decommissioned ship, so they can just leave on their own accord without the company's approval. What could go wrong? Seeing as this is completely out of her skill set, Rain asks what her role's going to be, and they fess up that the main reason they invited her is just because they need Andy's ability to hack into the ship without tripping the security. But Rain is super skeptical, and I would be too. Bjorn then gets super frustrated instead of trying to be nice and maybe convince Rain to let them use Andy, and Bjorn resorts to being an ass and saying Andy is just old parts that they should be able to use. Ouch. I'm feeling for Brobot after that one. But this does explain why Andy appears as someone with a mental disability, and honestly, it's a super cool way to show how older model androids will start to malfunction over time. Rain storms out with Andy, but Tyler chases after them. He apologizes for Bjorn being a dick, but says he's right about Wayland not giving a shit about its workers. Also, I like how Wayland-Yutani refers to the residents as workers and not employees. I think this is a neat way to subtly hint at the cruelty on the colony. Rain then stares at a group of miners walking past with a canary, and not wanting that future for her or her brother, she asks Tyler if he can actually pull this off, and Tyler says that he can promise she will be safe. And let me tell you, brother, do not make a girl a promise if you know you can't keep it. Moving on, we see Tyler's ship powering up as the crew gets to their stations. As everyone is getting situated, Bjorn asks Rain and Andy if they've ever even been to space, and Bjorn does the nose trick to Andy, and genuinely, I wanted to smack this man. Very few film characters actually make me feel this type of way, and when I say Bjorn is cruising for a bruising, my god, dude. But this same guy also uses the gravity from the spaceship's ascent to drag his entire joint like it's a gravity bomb. And honestly, that's fucking cool and creative as hell. And now I want to try that shit. As they finally exit the planet's atmosphere and enter space, the crew realize it isn't a ship they're raiding, and it's actually some sort of space station, but decide to proceed anyways. As Tyler is scanning the space station based on its trajectory, he determines that they have roughly 36 hours before the station collides with the planet's rings. There's an initial panic, but Tyler assures everyone it shouldn't take more than 30 minutes. Rain then takes Andy aside and checks in with him on whether or not he is still okay to do this, and Andy reveals he was actually programmed by her father to always do what's best for Rain. She then hugs him and tells him to be careful, but this is an alien movie, and alien movies are hardcore slasher coded and always have a final girl, so I'm guessing it does not in fact matter if Andy is safe. So Andy goes with Bjorn and Tyler as they get ready to board the station. As their ship docks with the station, Tyler uses a temp gun to find out it's absolutely freezing in the station, indicating some of the station's systems are down. Compression's okay, but oxygen is low, so Tyler and Bjorn equip oxygen masks as Andy gets the door open. The three enter, and the door closes behind them. Now, this is where I'd say the movie actually starts to pick up. From the flashlight, we can see a slime all over the vents they need to crawl through, and it's extremely tight and claustrophobic. I have claustrophobia myself, so although it's not often used, when it's done right, like this sequence, it creates a very tense atmosphere, and I love it. As they continue on, they find a floating rat, indicating the gravity systems are also down. But shortly after finding it, the rat is sucked to the bottom of the vent. Navarro explains that it's something called a gravity purge. Basically, even if the main system is down, the gravity generators have a failsafe every so many minutes to help keep the station stable. Then, as she finishes explaining this, the gravity shuts off again, and Bjorn mentions how it messes with the stomach. I sure hope this doesn't cause any problems in the future. They then keep working their way through until they come to a large open room, and one of them throws a flare, revealing a bunch of floating debris. and the camera stops and lingers on a very similar device used by the researchers at the beginning of the film. The three float around the room a bit, and Tyler is able to locate the cryopods. But as he reports this in, another gravity purge is triggered, and Bjorn is midair as it happens, causing him to crash down on a barrel, which is 100% karma for disrespecting my man Andy. Tyler then gets Andy to use another terminal, and it restores power to the station and also reboots Mother. As this happens, Tyler inspects the pods, but finds out they only have enough power for 3 years of cryosleep each. And they need 9 each. Rain suggests they could come back when the pods have had time to refuel, but Tyler decides that it won't take nearly as long to simply find another fuel bay and get more fuel for the pods, and then that way they don't have to come back. As they move on, Andy bumps into Bjorn and he gets in Andy's face about it, but Rain tells him to back off over the radio. As she does, Navarro and Kay explain to Rain that Bjorn doesn't like synths because one was responsible for his mother's death, and honestly, after playing Fallout 4, I get it, man. Navarro then undocks the ship so they can meet up with the guys once they have the fuel and collect the pods, who I will now be referring to as Alpha Team from here on because of Tyler's stupid-ass military hand signals that he tries once, and I will not forget. Kay then starts vomiting like crazy all over the damn toilet, like fucking everywhere. And this is when I learned her name was actually Kay. While Rain is concerned for her, Navarro seems pretty pissed off, and we find out that Kay is actually pregnant. It's too bad you decided to do that in an alien film. Alpha Team continues to follow the signal to the fuel depot, and it leads them into what appears to be a science wing, with some sort of mantis-like appendage hanging out of a beaker. After Bjorn is done being an ass yet again, Andy grabs him and he thinks Andy is trying to hurt him, but we see Andy actually saved him from falling 10 or so decks below. As they inspect the hole, it appears burnt, almost like some sort of acid has melted through it. I wonder where that came from. We then also see another synth whose lower half has been melted away and has suffered serious burns to its arms. But they don't stick around and leave to finally find the door to another cryo chamber, so it's time for Brobot to do his thing. As he gets it open, the door only opens about halfway, and we can hear something moving around inside. Ducking inside, they find the room has flooded, but Tyler manages to find the fuel cell with enough fuel for all of their pods. But it's stuck, so he calls Bjorn over for help. They both pull, and as they do, there's a pressure leak, and Bjorn gets coolant sprayed all over his pinky and ring finger. Ouch, my dude. Those are gone, I'm sorry to say. To make matters worse, apparently the cells had some sort of fail-safe, and they all get locked in the room. As Andy tries to open the door, he is denied and is told he does not have the proper clearance. And honestly, I had the exact same reaction as Bjorn here.
What's she trying to tell me that you fucking reboot the entire ship? We can't open a random fucking door to a random room.
As Alpha Team tries to get the door open, the camera pans down the hallway and we get our first Xenomorph on a computer display in the form of a Facehugger, seemingly being studied here before the station went silent. And now, it's up to Beta Team, comprising of Rain and Navarro, to get them out. Shortly after boarding the station, Beta Team enters the same lab with the melted synth, and Rain gets an idea she might be able to transfer its clearance to Andy. We then transfer back to Alpha Team as Andy is wandering around the cryo room while Tyler is securing more fuel cells just in case. As Andy does this, however, he finds a bunch of bags with facehuggers inside them. The one that the camera focuses on has labels that read Sample 7 and Subvariant 7, indicating, to me at least, the researchers were possibly experimenting with multiple generations of Xenomorph. We see, however, the temperature rapidly rise as the creatures begin to move, and shit is about to hit the fucking fan. As it's revealed, there are at least 30 facehuggers in there with them. Navarro finds a pretty sick X-ray flashlight, and Rain manages to activate the android systems. And as it does, it jump scares Rain. We see that it's actually an Ash model, the same model from the first Alien film. It grabs her wrist, but Navarro manages to pull out the chip before it can hurt Rain, and it shuts down again. Beta Team then regroups with Alpha Team and hands off the chip to Tyler to give to Andy. Tyler manages to get it into Andy's board, but Brobot locks up as Windows forces him to install a new update instead of reminding him later. I fucking hate that shit. Not only that, but since he's on the update screen, Bro can't tell everybody about the facehuggers who are starting to infest the water. Luckily, Tyler notices pretty quickly and goes on alert. Unluckily, however, he is in an alien movie. Surprisingly, Bjorn and Tyler don't get face-hugged right away, score 1 for Alpha Team. However, when Tyler catches one on his face,
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man? Get your ass on.
Bjorn's idea to help him is to hit it with a cattle prod while it's still on Tyler's face, which, of course, knocks Tyler out. Minus 10 points for Alpha Team. However, something interesting happens. While Rain is attempting to help Alpha Team, Navarro backs away terrified from the door, seemingly knowing what the Facehuggers are. As Tyler is about to get pounced again, Windows Update finishes and Andy saves Tyler's ass as they manage to escape the room. But these are Xenomorphs. They aren't your average Earth-grown animal, so they just smash the glass and continue chasing Alpha and Bravo Team. I also realized I just called them Bravo Squad instead of Beta Squad, so yeah, that's their new name. As they get back into the main lab, Andy seals the door, but not before one Facehugger gets through and latches onto Navarro. I was impressed, honestly, with how long they lasted, but you knew it was gonna happen eventually. While the humans are trying to figure out what's happening to her, Andy reveals he has upgraded from Windows 98 to Windows 11 and is way more intelligent than before. While he explains that while the creature is not killing Navarro, it is keeping her alive for reasons he does not yet understand. He then explains that while his processing power has increased, his knowledge database has not increased. Which basically means that while he's a lot more smart now, the chip did not come with any new information. Brobot then says the synth he got the chip from might know how to remove the Facehugger, so they try to boot him up. Once he powers up, the computer display tells us his name is Rook. Rook then explains the events of the first Alien film, and that they all need to leave Navarro here and escape while they still can. Rook further explains what they found at the beginning of the movie was actually the alien from the Nostromo, and they assumed it was dead, but the lack of food and the vacuum of space was not enough to put the thing down permanently. And we actually see the harpoon Ripley used is still embedded in the chest of the creature. After hearing this, Rain gets an idea to use the cryofuel to freeze the Facehugger's tail so that it can't choke Navarro while they remove it, and honestly, I didn't expect this to work, but their plan actually works. As they pull the creature off, however, we get the briefest glimpse showing the egg being deposited anyways. Rook explains to Andy that he must act before the humans get too emotional, because it becomes too hard for them to make the hard choices. Andy then tells them that they need to stay until they can make sure Navarro is safe, but Bjorn says fuck that and hits Andy with a riding thunder punch using the cattle prod, sending Andy into the wall and short-circuiting him briefly. But he fakes out Rain and goes full Terminator mode, sprinting and stopping Bjorn from leaving them behind. But before they can, Bjorn simply falls back to a door that closes quicker than the other door. Big brain play, I guess. Andy then has a moment to compute and tries to figure out how to stop them. As chaos ensues, Kay wakes up from her beauty nap and asks Navarro what's happening. As she grabs the X-ray out of her pack, using it on her back, uh-oh, Navarro, looks like it's gonna be a baby boy. Upon hearing this news, she collapses to the ground and starts convulsing. Reminds me of my first child. Such fond memories. Unfortunately, while this is happening, one of her legs flies up and her foot kicks the ship's throttle. And I gotta ask, who the fuck put this thing so close to the ground? Then the inevitable happens, and the movie's first Xenomorph is born, in perhaps the most well-done chestburster scene yet. As this happens, Kay screams in horror, and the ship scrapes along the bottom of the station. As Bjorn climbs up and sees Navarro's new offspring, the ship crashes into the land. As Bjorn climbs up and sees Navarro's new offspring, the ship crashes into a landing bay on the station, sparing everyone except for Navarro. Rest in peace, girl. Bjorn then falls for the third time in the film, and this time it's looking pretty bad for him. The ship luckily doesn't destroy any major systems, but it does shatter a large pane of glass, which causes the landing bay doors to seal and repressurize the area, but also locking the Xenomorph in with them. Rain asks where they landed, and Tyler says they landed in the Romulus hangar bay.
He said it! He said it!
Ray and Tyler move out, now designated as Charlie Team, and no, I'm not gonna let this go. But as they do, Brobot's starting to act a little sus, and I do not like his new vibes. We then cut to Rook, who is pulling himself along the desk, only to reveal that they have the black goo from Prometheus on the ship. And just like that, I guess I am covering the whole Alien franchise eventually, because this movie has actually reinterested me in Alien again. Rook then asks Mother if the goo is stable, and the system says it has 100% integrity, with Rook stating, then there's still hope. Charlie Team then progresses to a sealed door, but before they can open it, they realize the hallway has actually become infested with Facehuggers, like it's goddamn ant season. Rain goes to ask Andy for help, but didn't read the notification when Andy left the party. You find Andy has gone back to have a chat with Rook, and while Rook is talking, he explains to Andy that he needs his help. However, as Andy attempts to tell Rook that he can't help because he only has one directive, he forgets Rain's name. Oh boy, here we go again. He then asks Rook what is needed of him and calls him Sir, and Rook replies, to finish our mission. Andy then rejoins the party, and we actually get some cool new Xenomorph lore. Brobot explains the Facehuggers, or parasitoids as he calls them, cannot see like we do, or even use sound really. Instead, they hunt using thermal sensors in their body to find heat, as heat generally equals a living creature, as well as feeling for vibrations. Rain then comes up with the idea of raising the temperature of the hallway to match their bodies, and by minimizing vibrations, they might just be able to sneak past. But there's another issue. The ship hitting the station has changed its course, and now the station is going to crash in 36 minutes instead of 30 hours. Oh, how the turntables. Meanwhile, back on the ship, Kay regains consciousness to see Navarro is still very dead and the chestburster has vacated the premises. Back with Charlie Team, the hallway temp is ready to go, so they make their attempt at sneaking by. Andy explains they will need to focus on their emotions as well, because strong ones like fear will spike their temps. But because Andy's a robot, this is pretty easy sailing for him, so he takes the lead. As Rain makes her way through, she sees someone taken out behind a door, and she finds someone dangling from the roof with their head looking like something was snacking on it. Holy shit, that is nasty. Now, I also wanted to take a moment just to appreciate how cool this sequence actually is. While there is more to it, with going back and forth between the station and the ship, creating uneven tension on both sides, with Tyler and Rain needing to be quiet, with Bjorn and Kay walking into a trap. The fact they decided to actually use the Facehugger as a very substantial threat, instead of just a story vehicle for the Xenomorph, was actually a huge surprise, but one I was super happy to see and experience. For once, I actually felt tension from the Facehugger itself, and not just what happens to you after it gets you. We then return to Kay as she climbs down the ladder, and she is sporting some white Chuck Taylors. Very respectable shoe choice, and I'm glad Converse survived 100 years into the future. So, when I transfer my brain into a new body in 20 years, I too can continue to wear one of my favorite shoe brands. As she slowly investigates, she finds the chestburster's shed skin on the floor, and looking up, finds a very moist cocoon with a very suspicious looking opening on the front. And after seeing this, I should probably call her. Like, I actually debated censoring this. Backing away in disgust, Bjorn spawns in for a quiet jump scare while he covers Kay's mouth. They then quietly rejoice that they are both okay, and Bjorn moves and jacks the cattle prod into the ship to supercharge it. He then shoves that thing deep in there. After which, he activates the cattle prod as it sparks and Xenomorph cries can be heard. But a fuse is blown and the prod is melted by acid. Kay says they need to leave, but Bjorn wants to make sure this thing is dead, right as the alien says, "My turn," and takes out his eye with its tail. As he falls to the ground clutching his eye, the Xenomorph then drips acid onto his arms, face, and his chest. And, bro is cooked. Literally. Rest in piss, Bjorn. You were an asshole till the end. Kay then calls Tyler because she's locked in the ship. Tyler tells her where the key is as the alien is hatching from its cocoon, and oh my fucking god, dude. The way the alien's body like forms and snaps into place, the electricity channeling around its skull. Whoo-wee, man. Hands down, one of the coldest Xenomorph entrances we've ever gotten. Right up there with Nethead from AVP. Kay manages to get the door open, but she falls down and sustains her third major injury as well. I'm sorry, girl. I'm getting real worried that baby ain't making it to full term. And since the comms are still on, the Facehuggers hear all of this. Andy then sends it's time to skedaddle as Charlie Team books it through the hallway. Nearly getting sliced by the door, Charlie Team barely makes it through, and Mother states the station will crash in 30 minutes. We then get a good wide shot of the Renaissance space station, and we find out that the station is actually two modules, one named Romulus, as we already knew, but the other is named Remus. Now, I won't bore you with ancient Roman lore in a horror movie summary, but this ties into the story of Alien. Obviously, the film is named Romulus, but the story of Romulus and Remus is essentially two brothers who were left for dead in a river, managed to survive, overcome adversity, and build the city that would later become Rome. This very much parallels the story of the Nostromo Xenomorph, who was left to die in the sea of space, only to overcome adversity and establish a new presence on the Remus and Romulus modules. It can also serve as an allegory for the relationship with the engineers and humanity. We learn in Prometheus that the engineers created humans, but then left them to die. Humanity was able to overcome this adversity and establish its current empire in space. For Xenomorphs and humans could be seen as children of the engineers who overcame adversity, much as Romulus and Remus were nephews to the king who left them for dead. There's a lot more that I could get into, but that's honestly another video for maybe in the future. Cutting back to Kay, she regains consciousness for the third time as the sprinklers trigger from the fire. As she does, she can hear the Xenomorph coming out of the ship, so she hides under the grating, but it lands right on top of her. However, it spots two juicy-looking bodies and takes them for a midnight snack. Seeing her opportunity, Kay nopes out of there. She reaches a locked door, but Charlie Team shows up. Andy goes to open the door, but spotting the Xenomorph, he stops and backs away. While they argue with Andy, however, Kay gets yoinked by the alien. After reaching another lab requiring even higher clearance than before, Andy and Rook explain the reason for the station was to help evolve humanity to exist for space colonization. After researching the Facehuggers that Rook was able to gestate from the Xenomorph DNA, he managed to extract the famous black goo, otherwise known as chemical A0-3959X.91-15. And Jesus fucking Christ, I felt like such a nerd saying that. Rook then explains he was able to refine the chemical to be used safely on humans, calling it Z-01 or Prometheus Fire. And hell yeah, brother, that's a sick name. During this scene, we see a rat get crushed, and it seemingly magically comes back to life completely fine, as it's revealed it was injected with Z-01. Andy then explains he needs to get it back to the colony for further development. And, you want to tell us what you mean by that, Andy?
What did he say?
Then, as they attempt to leave with the Z-01, Rain notices the Xenomorph in the hallway they came in from. Andy realizes they aren't going to make it through on their own, so he asks how well they can handle a weapon. Andy then opens a locker, revealing two F-44 AA pulse rifles. Now, these are not the same ones used by the Colonial Marines in the Aliens film, but are actually a variant of their M41A pulse rifle. Essentially, these models have been outfitted with an auto-aiming system to help scientists use them with less training if needed. Tyler then gives Rain a crash course on how to use it, but Andy reminds them they aren't going to be firing these weapons until they can get to a higher level. And Andy hopes the Xenomorph will actually see it as a deterrent instead. My guy, that one is a big ask, but he is right. If they wound the alien, its blood will eat through the hull and cause another decompression. As they find a new way out away from the alien, the camera pans over to show a horribly mutated animal that has bursted through a container. As the camera pans, we see the monitor, and it's revealed the rat mutated after reviving into this hideous thing, indirectly telling us that Rook is hiding something. Continuing down the corridor, Charlie team run into what looks like the start of a Xenomorph hive. They all agree to find another turnoff, but they hear a human moan as they're turning around, and Tyler realizes it's Kay. As they run down the hall to find her, they also find all the other researchers who are on the station. They manage to find her, but she's not looking good. Not sure of their options, Andy offers Tyler one of the Z-01 syringes, but Rain stops him, saying she doesn't trust the black goo, and she shouldn't, so good on her for that one. She tells Tyler they should get her proper treatment at the colony. Tyler asks Andy if she'll even make it, and Andy says yes, but they need to hurry. As he finishes saying this, they can hear a Xenomorph screech from down the hall. Charlie team then runs away, but they get cornered at a locked door. Tyler tries to get it open, but the Xeno catches up. Going for Rain, Tyler jumps in front of her, and the Xeno stabs him in the back with its tail. Yikes. Then it swings its tail and knocks down Brobot, putting him into blue screen. As the Xeno hauls Tyler up a tunnel into the roof, it's revealed there are actually many Xenomorphs on this side of the station. Tyler attempts to fire his weapon, but it doesn't work, and Tyler gets a mouth through the eye. Rest in peace, Tyler. You were indeed one of the good guys. Kay and Rain then make it to an elevator before the Xenomorphs can catch up, and holy shit, there's another 40 minutes in this movie? I'm not complaining, I'm just surprised. Also, I know we needed to move the plot, but the holes in the grate of the elevator are like the size of a goddamn football, and there's no reason the Facehuggers couldn't squeeze through, but oh well, it doesn't matter. Feeling super guilty for leaving her Brobot behind, Rain decides to arm the pregnant lady, send her up to the ship by herself, so she can return to the colony in her current condition? I'm not even going to say anything, I'm just going to let that one sink in. Now it's time for Rain's drip check as she's rocking the Reebok BB 4002 mid-top casuals in the maroon colorway. Again, glad to see Reebok is still making sick drip in 2142. And basically, as soon as Rain leaves, Kay says fuck this and takes the drugs. Big fucking mistake. Kay is able to make it back to Andy, and she manages to convince him to let her remove the chip. And she's able to, right as Mother tells them, they only have 10 minutes left. Now, this is the second time we actually see the blue mist in this film, and I wanted to take a moment to take my crack at explaining it, since it never has been officially. In this scene, we see the mist illuminating the railings as well as the walls behind it. In the previous scene, it almost looks like the light is coming from the walls of the ship, but if it was, then it would be impossible to light up the railing the way that it is. I believe the light is actually produced by the mist itself, and this blue mist is a type of detection system, similarly to how a spider uses a web. Let me explain. Now, I don't think this is created by the Xenomorphs themselves, or we would see it more regularly. I think instead it works as a motion sensor, but also as a temperature regulator, to make it easier for facehuggers to hunt. It's also not generated by facehuggers, however, or we would see it in the hallway scene. Instead, I think this mist is created by the actual ovomorph itself. While we don't see any directly, with all the researchers being found here, it's safe to assume the eggs were here at some point. But you're probably wondering, if they're such perfect organisms and so efficient at hunting, why would they need this detection system? And I believe I have the answer. Like I said before, the blue mist is not a common thing Xenomorphs create, and in fact, we've only seen it in the first Alien and now in Romulus again, where both movies feature dormant, inactive hives. Think about it for a moment. In every other Alien film, the hives are either brand new or just starting out with a few Xenomorphs. So when biomass becomes scarce, I believe Xenomorphs hibernate and generate the blue mist for detection, rather than having drones constantly patrolling the hive and wasting their energy. This also explains why in hives that are more active, they seem very hot and humid, with lots of white fog and mist. But in the dormant ones, they almost appear cold and have that heavier blue mist. Now, this is my own theory, but I can't find any other theories online that neatly fit why it's in both films and not in the rest of them. And with that out of the way, let's get back to the movie. Team Charlie is moving back through the corridor towards the lab, and Kay is almost at the ship. As they make it through, they reach yet another locked door, and when they try to open it, Rook says, that's not the password. Pissed off, Rain shoots the monitor and looks for another way out. Cutting back to Kay, she's not looking good, as Rook tries to convince her to let him fly the ship. Back to Rain and Andy, Rain has some final moments with her brother and braces for the end, but before, she gets an idea from one of Andy's jokes and turns off the gravity. Without gravity, the blood won't be able to fall and leak through the ship, so naturally, Rain crashes out. And easily scores a chopper gunner kill streak with her aimbot on. Seeing their homies getting clapped, the rest of the Xenos with heads still intact decide to retreat. Except now they have a swirling acid death tornado that they need to navigate to leave. Rain and Andy are able to make it through and realize the elevator isn't gonna work without gravity because of the way the pulley system works. So they go to moon bounce up there, but as they do,
Give me your shoes.
a Xenomorph snags Rain's foot because he wants that drip. So she hits him with the Draco. As she's floating up to reach Andy, the gravity purge kicks in and Rain plummets to her death. Except she doesn't. She actually gets saved by a Xenomorph.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
Now, honestly, this actually really threw me off, but I think I actually have a solution that kind of makes sense. As the Xenomorph places Rain near the ladder, we see electricity surging around its skull, indicating that this is indeed the same Xenomorph that Bjorn tried to kill with the cattle prod. So, my working theory is that since the alien came from Navarro's DNA and it was electrocuted during its metamorphosis, it's possible that the alien was born and not formed correctly. And maybe some of the memories from Navarro actually coded themselves into the Xeno. That's why the Xenomorph still attacks Kay, because Navarro was jealous of the attention that her brother gave to Kay over her, and the fact that the baby Kay has is Bjorn's, but Kay won't tell him. Now, some people online believe she was just put there to get face-hugged, but then why not bring her somewhere else? Why leave her to get face-hugged and then sucked out into space? That doesn't add up. And it honestly had plenty of time to kill her or just, let her fall. So I think that due to the young age of this Xeno and its interrupted birth cycle, it actually shared some of Navarro's memories and it did save Rain. But then Andy comes swinging in like a goddamn Chad and sends that thing straight to hell. Rip Xenomorph, you will be missed. Andy and Rain finally make it to the ship and allow Mother to remote fly the ship to safety, except there's still another 20 minutes of runtime in this film. Rain disconnects the ship from Mother and they leave, plotting their own course. As Rain puts Andy into sleep mode, she gets into her PJs and gets ready for a nice long nap. Except an alarm sounds and Kay's cryopod starts freaking out. Reading the display, it says vital levels critical, stasis aborted.
Oh shit, here we go again.
As Rain ejects Kay from her pod, she notices the injection site of the Z-01 syringe, and she sees the baby has actually come to full term already. Before she can react, though, Kay goes into labor and gives birth to a combination of an ovomorph egg and a xenomorph cocoon. Rain quickly wraps it up to try and get it to the airlock as quickly as possible, but it starts leaking acid. As it falls down to the cargo bay, it messes with the hull integrity and causes the autopilot to malfunction, waking Andy up again. Rain gets down there, but finds the newborn is gone and finds slimy footprints leading away from it and getting bigger as they go. Andy now comes to where Kay is, and after they share looks, the beautiful man of the hour is here, and my god, he is disgusting. Getting back up to Kay and Andy, Rain comes face to face with the newborn as it finishes growing its tail. It tries to corner her, but she gets it with the coolant. She tries to get Andy up with her, but the room starts to freeze. She escapes into the airlock, but it's still freezing, so she gets into a spacesuit to stay warm. She then gets an idea to vent it out into space, a la Alien 1. She goes to pull the last lever and gets knocked down by the newborn, but Rain ain't no bitch. She spills the acid from the egg, opening a hole in the cargo bay as she falls out. She climbs back up the cord she secured her suit to, but before she can make it fully back in, the alien is still inside. In a last-ditch effort, she yanks herself to the right and unlatches the final lever, detaching the cargo bay and sending the alien plummeting into the rings of the planet. And now, with only a few minutes left in the film, it finally wraps up into a nice ending for Rain and Andy. Well, not so much for Rain's friends, but her and Andy got what they wanted and deserve in the end. Alien Romulus is honestly a fantastic addition to the Alien franchise and very nicely connects the Prometheus films with the Alien films without retconning or stepping on the toes of the others. It has lots of callbacks and references for longtime fans while still creating a thick and tense atmosphere. And if you're still sitting on the fence, I recommend you watch it. While Romulus doesn't have as much gore as Covenant did, I found the deaths of the characters a lot more tragic because we actually got to know who they are, what their goals are, etc. Whereas I found a lot of the deaths in Covenant to simply be for the shock value. In fact, when I found out Shaw had died at the hands of David, I was way more upset because it felt personal after the journey we go on with her in Prometheus. But in Romulus, every death feels personal, and I think that really worked in the film's favor. I also really enjoyed the lore that was added with this entry, as it actually gives me more reasons to rewatch the film than simply because I really enjoy it. The set pieces were beautifully made, and this movie really felt like a true sequel to the first Alien. All the actors did fantastic in their roles, and as I mentioned earlier, I hated Bjorn throughout the film because the actor did such a good job playing his part. So, kudos to Spike, even if he's got a cringe first name. Sorry, bro. And I can't summarize an Alien film without talking about H.R. Geiger. Without him, we would not have the Xenomorph as we know and love it today. And while I can't find any actual interviews or evidence really stating where he got his inspirations from, I personally believe Geiger's designs are inspired by Lovecraft himself, especially when you compare the Mi-Go of Yuggoth to the Xenomorphs. Because at the end of the day, a hyper-intelligent, indestructible, hive mind-controlled alien race with motives that we can never understand is truly an Eldritch vision. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like and consider subscribing, as I also do Lovecraft-themed game Let's Plays, and I even do immersive readings for H.P. Lovecraft stories. If you have any suggestions for future content, then please leave them down below. Thank you again, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a great night.